Welcome to Leadership Moments.
In every great leader's life, there are pivotal moments that shape their character, test their resilience, and awaken their vision.
Together, we'll uncover the invaluable lessons hidden within these transformative moments. Today, our guest is Gopal RajGuru. Gopal is a managing partner at Innovate and Grow based out of the Geneva area in Switzerland. He is an executive leader with over 30 years of operational experience in innovation, technology and services, sales, and marketing. He works throughout the globe in the US, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. He is also a professor, keynote speaker, and a leadership coach. Today, we are going to talk about the impact you can have on others that could last decades. Let's get into it. Hi, Gopal. Thank you so much for being a guest on our episode today. Really appreciate it. You've done amazing things, and I know we're going to get into that today. Let's start with, can you tell us a time in your leadership career that surprisingly was pivotal for you and how you navigated it?
Very much. Thank you, first of all, Stacey, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure to be here. So I think there were two moments actually, and that really had an impact on my career. I think the first one was the first time, and I was a young leader at the time. I was 26, 27 years old, and the managing director of the international part of an American software company that I had set up. And the setting up and all that stuff, that was fun. It was mechanical, lots of new things to do. But I think the pivotal moment was when I had to do my first performance review. And when I did that first performance review, it was with the only employee I had at the time, and she brought up in the review something that I had said 6 months previously, and it was something that for me was an offhanded comment. I mean, it was something that really did not, it didn't figure in my well thought out process and all of that, but it was something I had said in the spur of the moment, and the impact it had on her was remarkable. And I thought, as a leader, I have to do the thing that, as a carpenter, young carpenter, you're always told, measure twice, cut once. And I think as a leader, what I learned that moment is think twice, speak once. Because the leader's words way more in a person's life, particularly when that person reports to you, they're your employees. That your words matter more to them than a casual comment from a colleague or a friend or whatever. So the words you use for your employees has to be something that you really have to think about. And the casual comment, which for me, and thank goodness it was not something that changed her life or something like that, but she remembered it and it made an impact on her, and it made 3 times the impact on me. So that was one. That was one thing that I learned, is choose your words very, very carefully. That was something that was a huge moment for me. The other one had to do with my career change. And that is, I spent 10 years in the IT industry, doing sales and sales leadership, and then being a managing director and all of that. But then I worked as a consultant in that same business, helping American companies internationalize their operations and set up joint ventures and things like that. And after an assignment, I ended up, 2 weeks before Christmas, not really much to do. So after a very stressful assignment, I went back to the US, and without ever having announced it to anybody, got a phone call from somebody with whom I'd been at university 10 years previously. I mean, I'd never even thought of this person again. And I was staying at my parents' house. They picked up the phone and, handed it to me after a few minutes, said, "It's for you." I said, "Who knows I'm here?" Nobody knows I'm here. So what on earth is happening here? I just couldn't understand what was going on. But then I spoke to this man for a little while, and he'd been in my communications class, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. It was like 10, 12 years before that. And I said, "Well, what prompted you to call me?" And he said, "Well, I remember you were always good talking in front of a crowd." And I said, "Yeah, reasonably." And he said, "No, I remember the first day of class, in communications class, when we talked about, the professor talked about extemporaneous speeches, and then said, for example, like this young man is going to do," and pointed to you. and you proceeded to stand up and give a 45-minute lecture, complete with made up statistics and graphics and all of that, totally off the cuff. And we were in absolute stitches because it was about premarital sex. You have never seen a professor so red in the face as that. And I don't think he called on you for the rest of the quarter. And I said, yeah, that's very true. He said, well, we need you to do some of that. Not exactly that, but something like that in a training class for the company that I work for. And I said, well, I don't know. What can you do? And he said, well, it pays $3,000 a day. So San Diego tomorrow. Okay, let's go. So those are two moments that I could pick out. I mean, down to the day and the second when that happened, that had a dramatic effect on my life and the way in which I interact with other people. And the same is true, actually. The first lesson also applies to the second, because as often being the external voice that is often reinforcing, reiterating, or often just restating things that their own leaders have told them over and over. But, like it's like a child listening to their parents, it's like, yeah. And then one of their friends says it to Dad, did you hear that? It's like, yeah, I've said that to you a number of times already. And that's often what happens when I'm teaching courses today, is that as I'm saying things, many times I'm echoing things that their own leaders have actually said to them in the past, and that have gone in one side and out the other. And I can help make those things stick. And so the impact that I have on people as I lead them through either a change of behavior as leaders, a change of salespeople as salespeople, as I lead them through a change, one of the things I realize is that many times the words that I speak in a workshop are also ones that have a greater impact on them than other influences in their life. And so choose your words carefully. I think that's, you also had asked me, as we were thinking about this, a word or a phrase that is important to you. And I think that's it. As a leader, choose your words carefully, because they weigh 3 times as much as any other things.
Yeah, love that. There's so many pieces in there. First, like you're right, words matter. I love the think twice, speak once, because I tell people all the time you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. So it's kind of similar. And
Yeah.
it's not just your words, right? It's also your actions.
Yes.
And think about 10 years later, somebody's calling you. Like, that's amazing in
It
itself.
was.
So really, really cool experiences and examples. I appreciate that. And, when you talk about, hey, $3,000 a day and back, when this happened, it's huge today, but even then, even bigger. And, you picked up and moved to another city, state. You actually got back from another country shortly before that. You were planning on not doing anything, and kind of relaxing after a harder project. So maybe can you help, other leaders, factors did you consider when you were making a decision like this? Because it could be a scary decision.
Well, I think, when you make a decision like this, and I'm actually faced with one right at the moment that's like this. And I think there are 3 factors you have to consider. The first factor is the impact it has on you. Okay, what will it change in your life? If there are things with which in your current life you're dissatisfied or that you want to change, this might be the catalyst, and be open to the opportunity that could potentially be the change for which you're looking. The second thing, and I think is equally important, is the impact it has on your family. I mean, if you're single, okay, it has less impact on family, although even then your greater family, if you will, the second ring, if you will, which is your friends and all the others, those are impacts you should also consider. And what impact it'll have on them. Because, for example, if the job is more demanding, or if it requires much more travel or this or that, that has a secondary impact. I mean, yes, it can help you, but at the same time, I think it also has a tremendous impact on your family. I mean, I myself, for example, when I was younger, I traveled a lot, and it's the only regret I have in life is that I missed so much of the time when our daughter was little. And that was one of those things that, you know, you can't get that back. That those years that are completely gone. Luckily, I have a nice relationship with her now, which is fantastic. So, you know, it doesn't make up for it, but you know, it's still it's something you have to consider, is the impact on you, the impact on your family. But I think third is, what is the impact you will make in that new, you know, role, in that new position, in that new task, or whatever? Is it something to which you can actually bring value? And if you can, I think that's important from the point of view of the person who, you know, who's hiring you, or you know, who's bringing you into this, or asking you to make that decision. But it's also important to you because it gives you a sense of satisfaction. There are unfortunately many people who work today not for the satisfaction they draw from it, but for the paycheck they get, or you know, whatever it does to satisfy certain mechanical needs. And to me, that's one of the saddest lives you can actually live, is not loving what you do. And I tell leaders all the time, you know, as a leader, you have to do much more than you do as a manager, because leadership is a personal choice. It's not something that is in a description. It's not a job description. The job description says you will meet targets, you'll manage these people, you'll do, you know, bonuses and this. You know the mechanics of running an organization. But a leadership position is the choice that you make to influence other people's behavior by adapting your own. And that often means work well outside the parameters of the management role that you often occupy. And I tell leaders all the time, I said, if you are not doing what you love, for God's sake, go and find something you do, because that has got to be one of the least pleasurable experiences in life, is being forced to do something that you don't like doing. And because, you know, work is something that fills the majority of our waking days. And if you're not having at least a little bit of fun, or at least able to find some joy in that, it's a tough road.
Yeah,
A really tough road. You know,
for sure.
I'm very fortunate that I'm not on that road. I happen to love what I do. And even those things I don't like, you know, the roles I've had that I didn't like, there was something out of it that I took. And I think that's always the thing, is to be open to the opportunity that it provides.
Yeah, I love being open to the opportunity and really finding your passion. And as a leader myself, right, I have found that most people are successful when you can match their passion to what they're doing every day. And you're right, money's great, but it does not buy happiness. And it can give
Does
you
not.
energy for a little while, but eventually you're going to get drained. And maybe, you know, can you tell our listeners, like, why did you choose leadership? What is your passion behind that? What are you loving about it?
Well, I think here again, there are multiple inputs. One is what it does for you, but more importantly, it's what it does for the other person. When you see the glow in their eyes, it's like, that was good. That was good. You did something good there. That you made somebody happy. That was good when you can do that. And it's something I had this wonderful experience. I was working with a consumer products company in a production environment in Portugal. And they are, you know, it's a, you know, heavy, dirty industry that, you know, they're manufacturing. It's a manufacturing plant, huge manufacturing plant, dirty, noisy machines running all the time. And their boss's boss's boss. I mean, so not the team leader, not the section leader, you know, not even the production manager, but the, you know, VP of operations. He was my coaching client. And we were talking about things like recognition, how important recognition is in terms of the motivation it creates for people. And and he refused to believe me. He just said, no, but Gopal, it doesn't work like that. You have to give them something. You have to give them, you know, money or a bonus or a gift card or something. I said, you know, if you are willing to suspend your disbelief for 48 hours, I'm going to give you something. Okay. I'll give you 100 euros. Okay. 100 euros, a bet. It's a bet. But you have to completely suspend your disbelief. And I want you to walk with me out on the production floor. And I want you to go to every single one of your production machines. And I want you to ask the team leader, what's the improvement that one of their team members has done? And I want you to provide them the recognition, like I showed you. I want you to provide them recognition on the spot. Okay. All right, fine. So he went down there. We went down. We spent the entire day. The first machine he came to, they said, okay, so who's the one who's oh, that's Joao over here. Oh, Joao, bring Joao over here. And he provided recognition to him, just spoken words. And, after he did that, he turned around and said, did you see his eyes? I said, that's the payback. They were glowing. I said, yeah, exactly. The fact that you noticed and did something about it, you acted on it, that's the difference. And so we went to the next mission, and the same thing happened, and the same thing happened. We spent the entire day going around to different machines. At the end of the day, he said, what time do we start tomorrow? I said, I don't have to pay the €100, do I? He said, no, this is great. So it's that thing, I think, that really inspired me also to be a leader, is that the impact you have on other people through your words and actions, and the joy that you get out of it, it's irreplaceable. As you said, money can't buy that happiness. You can rent it for a while, but you can't really buy that happiness, because that only comes through the joy that other people share with you. And it's lovely. I mean, it's something that really has no real equal in the working environment when you get that kind of feedback from people. So that, I think, is the thing that I experienced most, and it's the thing I actually like the most still.
Yeah, great story. And it's so true. Watching somebody light up, and seeing that they just empowered themselves, and recognizing, wow, I really can do this. Just showing a little bit of belief, or just a little bit of guidance as a leader, and how far you can take someone with that is really amazing. So thank you for sharing that additional story. That's awesome.
Pleasure.
Now let's divert a little bit. So Gopal, you have traveled, you have worked in many different countries. I think you've had teams. I think you told me at one time you had a team with like over 90 nationalities on it.
Yeah.
And, that can be difficult. We talk about, inclusive leadership and diversity and how important it is. And so, with you leading all these different nationalities on different teams, what advice would you give some leaders that are similar, and how they can build a cohesive team in situations like that?
Three things. Again, one, treat everybody as everybody. Treat everybody as equal. Focus on their performance, not the excuses of, well, I'm French, or I'm German, or I'm Thai, or I'm Chinese, or fine. But this is the way we do things here. Okay. Whether we like it or not, the leader establishes the culture of an organization. So if you allow that to happen, if you allow people to work at different paces, well, guess what? It's okay then. So you have to be consistent. Number two, you have to be very, very consequent. So if it works at once, it has to work again. 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 So you can't be all over the map. So you have to decide what's the right way to behave, and what's the right standards to set. Of course, the standard's not the same for everyone. If you have someone who's been in the organization for 20 years versus someone who's been there for 20 days, of course, you don't set the same expectations. But the measures that you use against those expectations, those are the same. So you have to be consistent in the way in which you do it. And that's exactly what I teach in my leadership programs as well, is that you don't set the same target for these two people, but the way you measure it, it's exactly the same. So those things have to remain constant. And the third thing I think that is really important is always be true to yourself, in that as you are dealing with different people, dealing with people in different cultures particularly, I mean, you have to learn to talk to them differently. You have to do this, but you can't lose yourself in that relationship. You have to adapt it, but it has to still always be you in that relationship. Otherwise, people will see, okay, so if I were that, or if I were that, then I'd be treated differently. Men versus women, for example, juniors versus seniors, or, this versus that. No, I mean, you have to be true to yourself, though you can adapt the behavior in which you interact with people. So I think those things are the most important, regardless of the diversity of your team. I mean, I also had a team, for example, in one of the interim management roles I had, it was entirely made of Finnish people. Okay, so it was one culture, basically. But one of the things that I think was the hallmark of that is they said, well, you act very differently than our previous leader. I said, well, how and why? He said, because you treat us all as equals. I said, because you are, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, okay, some of you have been here for 20 years, and some of you have been here for 3 months. Okay, but fine. I still expect all of you to fulfill the tasks that I assign to you. And when you do, you get the recognition you deserve. If you don't, I'm going to try and help you. If you do something that's unexpected or wrong, I will confront you on it. But it'll always be respectful. He said, yeah, we love that. That's fantastic. Can you stay, please? I said, not really my role, but it was funny because when they saw me coming into a Finnish company, they were like, oh, we don't know who this guy is and what he does, and so very quickly, it became clear to them. So that was the nice thing that came out of that is that regardless of how diverse your team is or how homogeneous your team is, your consistency and your consequent behavior, I think those things are really, really important.
Yeah. Again, even more good nuggets, right? And it's really just treat people as humans. Everybody just, it's, respecting who they are for what they stand for,
Yes.
their purpose, while holding them accountable to their job responsibilities and stuff, which can be a tricky road for some leaders. And, trying to find that fine line. Any suggestions for leaders on how to do that? Like how to build those relationships and respect people for who they are, understanding who they are, but also holding them accountable at the same time.
Well, there's no substitute for communication. I think, always having a two-way communication is critically important, because if you are doing it all one way, then, you're clearly doing this, and that's not going to help anybody in the process. So I think listening is as important as speaking. So we already talked about think twice, speak once, listen 4 times. Because it really is important to not only solicit feedback, but to actually listen to it and to understand it. You don't have to implement all of it. I mean, that's something that can't be done, because people will ask things that are outside of your realm, and you have to be true to yourself. But I think it is your job, your responsibility as a leader, to listen to the feedback that you're getting. And I think importantly, to create an environment where people feel empowered to give you that feedback. Because there are many organizations in which there's such a top-down culture that nobody dares speak up. And that, to me, it's horrible. I mean, the saying that it's lonely at the top comes from that, is that nobody dares to talk to you. Because if you create an environment in which feedback goes in all directions, then it is really a fantastic environment for everyone concerned, because they can then talk freely about the things that they appreciate, but also things that they don't, and they can make that more clear. I call it, the acronym I use for it is FREE, a feedback-rich environment for everyone. So FREE, and a free environment is really freeing. It's fantastic in the way that it changes an organization, because when you can get feedback, it isn't lonely at the top, because you get impact, you get input on the actions you have, because leadership is, it's kind of like the third law of physics, right? With every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with people. The reaction sometimes is completely muted. So they'll listen to you and say, yes, very good, thank you. So, oh yes, absolutely. And they walk out the door and have a screaming fit, because they go, that idiot doesn't listen to a damn thing I say. It doesn't know what I do. It doesn't know how hard I work and all. So instead of that, what I'd like to hear is, while you're having the discussion, having that person say, well, I understand what you're saying, but here's my perspective on it. This is what I did. This is how I did it. This is how I got the information. Okay. Now I know the problem. Let's solve the problem. So listening to me is just so critical. You have to do that. And if you don't, I think you're doing your people a disservice, but you're also doing yourself a disservice, because you're missing out on so much information.
Yeah. Love that acronym. And it's so true. It's like, it's listening to others, asking people questions, but also staying true to yourself too, and really just understanding both sides of how people view things. And that's,
Right.
Including you and how you do that. So
Yes.
love it. Love it. Free. I'm going to remember that one myself. When you think about today's changing world And, what are some emerging trends or challenges that leaders should be prepared to face, and how can they stay ahead of the curve?
Okay, this is a big one, okay, because as you know, I mean, you have this whole group of millennials and Gen Y and Gen Z and whatever comes after that. I suppose we're back to Alpha after that.
Yep.
But there's a completely different set of expectations than the ones with which we, and I put myself in that category, as when you have generations over 60 years of age. We grew up with a different work ethic, with a different set of expectations. You found a job, you put in your dues, you learned the job, you did all this. Those expectations are very different for us than they are for the new generations of people we will hire. Now, what it means is you have to, again, listen, understand, adapt. You can't necessarily change everything, but you definitely need to adapt because you have different generations of people working together, and you have to set consistent expectations. You have to provide consistent measurements and feedback and all of that. But you need to at least understand that their expectations are very different in the workforce, and the skills with which they are often coming to the workforce are very different in nature than they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And so consequently, you have to adapt your way of leading them. And the reason you have to is because whether we like it or not, they're the ones that are going to take over. They're the ones that are going to take over. So part of our responsibility, I think, as leaders, is to help them understand, the rules of the game, because they grow up oftentimes in an idealistic world where they are, coddled through school and go to universities without grades, and they do, all these kinds of things. And accountability oftentimes is something to which they are very, very unaccustomed. It's like, oh, I didn't feel like doing that. Doesn't matter if you didn't feel like it. It was the expectation. And now this is the consequence of not having done what you were supposed to do, what you were going to be held accountable to do. So teaching accountability, unfortunately, is one of those things that is now one of the jobs of leaders, is to help them understand that things are different. But at the same time, it also means that you need to be better. I think Simon Sinek does it in his How Leaders Communicate speech. You need to add context. Okay, you have to answer the why. So not just, Stacy, do this, but Stacy, do this because. Okay, this is how it fits into the context of what we as an organization are trying to accomplish, and giving them a sense of purpose. So, I mean, you've probably seen the videos by Daniel Pink about drive. The three
Yep.
things that motivate people. One of the biggest ones is purpose. Why am I doing this? So if they don't buy into the purpose of your organization, and that's where the sales job of a leader comes in, is to provide that environment where you are clear about why you're doing things, not just what you're doing, but why you're doing them. And then provide the environment in which they can do the other two things, where they can do the autonomy, if you will. They can direct certain parts, not everything, of course. You have to set parameters, but that they can have the autonomy that they feel within that parameters, and that they have an opportunity to demonstrate their mastery, to develop it and to demonstrate it. And if we can do those things together, I think it doesn't matter whether they're young, old, or anything else. You're going to get people who not only want to contribute, they want to belong. And belonging, I think, is one of those things. Charles Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks, once said that there are three places you have in your life, and his job was to run the third place. The first place is your family, the second place is your work, and the third place was the Starbucks. That's why they look like they're decorated like they are. They're decorated like a living room, and they wanted to provide that. It's the modern day pub. And pub stands for public house. It was really where
Yep.
people went to meet. And so this is exactly the kind of thing, is that work is still a very, very important place in most people's lives, because again, you spend the majority of your waking hours doing that. And if you're not doing it, not doing something you like, and you don't feel like you belong, it's not a fun existence. So I think as a leader, it's not your job to make it fun, but you can certainly create the environment in which people have fun. And that's I think is important.
Yeah, I love that you talk about the different generations. And I've personally been doing a ton of research on Gen Z and the workplace and how
Right.
that is impacting and how we as leaders can help them thrive. And The one thing that I've learned is if you've heard about the sorry, not sorry movement, so people are saying, sorry, not sorry, you'll see a lot of hashtags out there and stuff like that. And it just means, hey, I know this might not be normal or what people would accept, but it's who I am, and you
Mm,
need to accept it. And I believe that that's what Gen Z in the workplace is all about, is they are sorry, not sorry. So it is about being their authentic selves. But I love how you talk about need to teach them accountability, and you can be your authentic self while still holding yourself accountable.
exactly.
And those
Exactly.
are the two things that we need to marry, which is something that is needs to be taught, especially with Gen Z coming into the workforce as well. So love the way you
Absolutely.
said that. Really, really good pieces. So many nuggets in there. Really, really good stuff. And there's that sound. So we get to the fun questions that we're going to have now. So are you ready for these questions?
I am ready.
All right. The first one you kind of mentioned a little bit, which is what is your favorite word or quip?
Well, I have a couple, I think, but I mean, one of my absolute favorites is that one. Think twice, speak once, because I think that is, as a leader, that should be your mantra. Is I'm about to say something. Did I did I understand what the reaction of this might potentially be? And if the answer is no, think it through one more time before you say it, because once it's out, you can apologize for things, but you can never really take them back. So think twice, speak once. That I think is very, very important. The other one I think is that there are many people who are afraid of what's behind the door that they don't see. They're not open to opportunity. So they often put themselves into that rut of, well, I'm stuck here, I'm doing this, and this is the way life is going to be. Try, try, be open to it. I mean, what's the absolute worst thing that could happen? Well, I could lose my job. Okay. Could you find another one? Yeah, probably. I'm pretty good at accounting, or I'm pretty good at sales, or I'm pretty good. So you could find another one. Okay, so that eventuality isn't necessarily there. What could be the best possible outcome? Well, they could take my idea, they could implement that idea, we could all make more money, it'd be a nicer place to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
practice, learn how to do it, present it well, and all of that. Get some feedback, change your ideas, but try. I mean, what's holding you back? So there's I think those are the two things that are certainly hallmarks of my life. Try it. Who knows what's going to happen, and then think twice and speak once.
Yeah. Love that. So let's say upon your death, you have two old friends they're at a cafe on a street side of Paris and they're reminiscing about your life. What would you like them to be talking about?
I'd actually like them to be if they were talking about me, I would like them to talk about how much I cared for them. That's it.
That's
That's it.
great.
I mean, if they can feel like, my passing was actually a loss, something that actually felt like it left a hole in their life, it means that I mattered to them. And that's kind of all that matters, actually. The rest of it, the things you acquire and all of this stuff, the accomplishments you have, those are yours. But when it comes to the other people in your life, it really is about how much you care for them. So if they would somehow feel, oh, I wish he was here, I'd like to raise one more glass. That would be good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And, with you talking about your passion for leadership and what you do, that kind of just goes right into who you are as a human being, which I love. How about one more? We'll do one more. Which animal best describes you?
Oh, easy. Monkey.
Monkey. All right, you have to explain that one.
Curiosity. I'm curious about
Oh,
everything around me. And I want to take things apart. I want to try and figure them out. Same thing with people. I'd like to figure out, what makes them tick. I was it was a nice situation I had once. I was on an airplane flying from Stockholm to Zurich, and there was a young woman sitting next to me. And she, as we were, as the plane was boarding, they were closing the door and whatnot. She was pale. And I said, "Are you all right?" She said, "I've never flown before. I'm petrified." I said, "Well, you've probably read all the statistics. Did it make you feel any better?"
Right. No.
So what would make you feel better? Can I hold your hand? Absolutely. So for 2.5 hours when we were flying from Stockholm to Zurich, I mean, I couldn't feel this hand afterwards, but she felt better. She was
Yeah.
absolutely petrified. I mean, the whole time as we were taking off, I told her exactly what was happening and, what was going on and why this was it and why it was safe. And, and all the way through the flight, I kept talking to her, and she got down and she said, I came here to see a man that I met online. Shame it wasn't you. I thought that was it was a lovely thing. So I was curious about her, because all I did all through the flight was ask her questions about her life, because I was curious about her. And
Yep.
my colleague sitting next to me said, so how long have you known that person? I said, including the flight, 2.5 hours. But that's it. I'm curious about everything around me. And that's one of the things that I think drives my desire to educate people. Is it also gives me an opportunity to meet new people and to find out about them. And, in the course of my work, I typically meet between 1,000 and 1,500 people a year. And that's it. To me, it's what makes your life rich, is having these people that mean something to you and that you mean something to them. And I encountered somebody. I was walking through Singapore airport, and one in our negotiation workshop, we have a symbol that we use for our key phrase, which is under what conditions. And the symbol is this. It's under what conditions. It's the W. Okay, under what conditions. And this young man was in my workshop 10 years ago. And as I'm walking by the airport, he saw me sitting in the cafe, and he went,
just waved to you.
That's it. You got it. Absolutely. And it was that. So, I mean, it's the impact you have on people's lives. That to me is what makes it really interesting. And so, the monkey, I'm always curious. I'm always curious to know what's going on.
Yeah. And I love that even in our questions right now that we're having fun with, you're still teaching us stuff. It's really good stuff. And I think you talk about curiosity, and you talked about the opportunity, and how opportunity, like fear, can stop us. And I think if you are curious, that helps you overcome fear, because if you're curious and you're willing to ask those questions that maybe you're thinking inside and you're like, should I ask this? Should I not? But just ask it. And
Just
that will
ask
help start coming over fear. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Gopal, we could talk all day. Thank you so much for your time. If someone's
pleasure.
interested and wants to reach out to you, where can people find you?
So they can find me either at our website, which is innovateandgrow.com. It's all in one word. And although our company name has a plus in it, unfortunately, internet domains don't allow symbols like that. So it's innovateandgrow.com. And on there, you'll find both me and my partners, as well as all our emails and website, phone numbers as well. So please do get in touch if there's something with which we can help.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Gopal. Really appreciate your time today. So many good nuggets. I love the acronym FREE. I love making sure you just try things, listen twice, talk once. Many, many good nuggets. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me, Stacey. Great pleasure.
And that concludes another episode of Leadership Moments. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights in what we shared today. Remember, leadership is not defined solely by titles or positions, but by the choices we make and the moments that shape us.
Embrace the challenges that come your way. They may be the very moments that propel you toward greatness. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories as well. Connect with us on our website at leadershipmomentspodcast.com or through social media on Instagram at @tap_be-the-game-changer.
And StaceyCaster_. Remember, your leadership moment could be just around the corner, waiting for you to seize it. This is Stacey Caster, and what doesn't challenge you won't change you.
This is Tracy Ann Palmer, and be the change you wish to see in the world.